Good morning all, and thank you for joining us for the webinar on engaging employees through a self-developing organization in partnership with Skillsoft. I am Shweta from People Matters, and before telling you about today's agenda, let me give you a brief about today's topic. Research proves that employee engagement is a critical component of business performance in India, as it has a strong influence on employee contributions and employee retention. Moreover, companies that engage and develop their workforce realize a 59% growth in revenue per employee. Engaged employees have a good understanding of their role in the organization and are provided with opportunities to learn and develop with clear career mobility. Companies need a system that will provide individualized development, continuous learning, career mobility, knowledge acceleration, and meaningful insight in order to address engagement and retention, as well as agility in today's digital workplace. At the webinar, get a sneak peek of SumTotal Learn Winter 2016 release and how it can support the needs of your organization. In this webinar session, you will learn how to provide employees with access to personalized learning when and where learning is the most meaningful. Provide employees with a clear development path to prepare for future opportunities and required skills. Equip leaders with the insight they need to keep their teams engaged and productive. Allow leaders to foster collaboration and continuous development to derive business outcomes. We have the privilege of having with us Tym Lawrence, Director, Solutions Architect, Asia Pacific SumTotal Systems, a Skillsoft company. Tym is responsible for technical pre-sale and solution architecture, as well as mentoring the solution architect organization across Asia Pacific. Tym delivers strategic and compelling software demonstrations, prototypes, and presentations. He also supports and guides a regional team of highly skilled product and functional experts and has proven experience in design, development, sale, and implementation of online solutions that meet the needs of both business and customers. Tym has more than 16 years of experience delivering online content, commerce, and marketing solutions. Prior to joining SumTotal Systems in 2015, Tym worked for Zora, API Server Australia or Netcat, and Macquarie Bank. Our partner for today's webinar is Skillsoft. Skillsoft is a pioneer in the field of learning with a long history of innovation. Skillsoft provides cloud-based learning solutions for customers worldwide, ranging from global enterprises, government, and education to mid-sized and small businesses. Skillsoft's customer support team draws on a wealth of in-house experience, flexible delivery platforms, and a comprehensive learning e-library to develop off-the-shelf and custom learning programs tailored to cost-effectively meet customer needs. Skillsoft's courses, books, and videos have been developed by industry-leading learning experts to maximize business skills, performance, and talent development. Skillsoft currently serves over 6,000 plus customers and more than 1.9 crore learners around the world. We have a full exciting agenda for the webinar today. So, without any further delay, I am going to hand over the webinar microphone to Tym. Over to you.
So, first of all, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I'd like to introduce one of those skilled product and functional experts, one of our local SAs for us, who will be joining this call. And I'm actually going to get him to answer some of the questions, just to let you know, some of our local people are here and they know things even better than I. For us, really does know a lot about how the product works. But we're here today not to talk just about how the product works, but really why this matters. And we're going to start with the challenges that you face. This is something that should be familiar to anyone who runs a business, anyone who is working within a business. The organizations we work in today are facing even more challenges than ever before. If I start with the retention on the right-hand side, we know that it's harder and harder to keep the right people, the right talent. It's sometimes even harder to know who is the best talent in our organization. So we've got to know who they are and retain them. And we want to make sure that they understand us well. We also have to deal, and especially if we work in industries like healthcare or pharmaceuticals or finance or airlines, all of whom are very large customers of SumTotal and Skillsoft, we have to be able to show that we are compliant with the regulations and requirements that are imposed on our industry. And this is important so that we have to make sure our people are trained, but we can prove that they are trained. So compliance is a really important area across the world. When we talk about things like agility and alignment, you can see that 64% of CEOs that we talk to globally, right, this is from Deloitte Global CEO Survey. Sorry, that's from PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's number 2. They're looking globally, and they realize that finding a skilled workforce is one of the important drivers. And there is a skill gap, right? It's a skill gap in digital workforce. There's a skill gap in traditional workforce. And there's a lot of industries where the skills that you need are not easily acquired. There is a skill crisis, if you will, a talent crisis. And it's very hard to hire a person who has every skill you need. And if they do have every skill you need, then your competition is trying to hire them as well. So being able to address the skill gap, to be able to make sure that your employees are brought up to speed on what they need to know, and you can swiftly adjust as the market changes and keep that training in alignment with your corporate goals is really one of the biggest challenges you face. Another major challenge we've heard from everyone who's ever introduced learning is what we call discovery. And it's got to do with making sure that we can handle the different ways that employees learn and develop today. You know, we've got traditional enterprise learning, but then there's more modern content, sometimes external content. Could be a small bite-sized mobile a small bite-sized mobile video. It could be social and collaborative tools. Employees at your companies expect to be able to find information they need, and if they can't, they're wasting your time. And they need to make sure that the content they find is meaningful, relevant, and appropriate for them. So they've got to be able to search for it, they've got to be able to browse for it, and ideally they've got to be able to be prompted with the material they need. They need to be recommended. And all this leads to our top square, and really the point of this webinar, engagement. 87% of executives globally, and again this is from Deloitte, have identified that engagement is one of their top challenges. More than ever in history, there is a pressure to engage your employees, to make them enthusiastic about your organization, and to make sure that they feel that they are part of an organization, both in terms of receiving learning, but also career progression. So let's go into what this means a little bit more on my next slide. There was some research done in India, and you can see the references at the bottom there, and it really identified that employee engagement is one of the most critical components of business performance within India. It influences how well your employees contribute to your bottom line and to your success of your businesses, and how likely they are to stay. And we know how expensive it is to replace employees, and even if you could find the right person, which is hard, replacing them, training them up to speed, it costs a lot of time and money. And one of the most powerful impacts on engagement is learning. If people feel that they are learning new things in their role, it's one of the most powerful ways to engage your employees. And that's why learning and having a learning-centric culture, a self-developing culture, is such a high priority. And that leads us to really the way you address these challenges. How do you do it? You engage your employees and you develop a stronger organization by becoming what I think it actually was Burson by Deloitte coined, so it's not our term, it's Deloitte, a self-developing organization. And one of the key things about a self-developing organization is that we use technology, and of course SumTotal is a technology company, Skillsoft's a content company, which is why they fit so well together. You leverage technology to deliver personalized content and learning. But it's not that you enforce it upon people. It's that they find it and they're presented with it naturally and in context as part of what they're doing in their daily work. So I'm putting together a new quote. I get the learning I need in order to understand that product then and there. I'm in a a call center, and I have 30 seconds between calls. I might get a snippet of learning then and there. This is what we talk about when we talk about personalized content, recommended for me, and contextual. So let's then talk about what it means. What does it mean to be a self-developing organization? We've said that this is how companies succeed, how you overcome the challenges. And the way you do it is you radically simplify how your organization develops its capabilities, and you do that by engaging your people, letting them get knowledge more quickly, that's knowledge acceleration, and also giving them meaningful insight. And it breaks down to 3 levels. 1 is for the employee, 2 is for the leaders, and 3 is for your entire organization. So for the individuals, we make it simple to identify things like their career development growth and also their personal development opportunities, new things to learn, new places to go within the organization. If you feel that you're learning something new, if you feel you have a career path, you are much more likely to stay. And of course, for leaders, we want the insights that they need. Leaders need insights to keep their team engaged and productive, and also foster collaboration and continuous development. So letting employees teach each other, letting employees see how they're progressing through their development plan, but also monitoring and tracking. And not just for the sake of monitoring and tracking, but to understand, are we making our people better? Are they able to succeed in their current roles more effectively? Are they ready for future roles? And ultimately, this gives your business a game-changing approach. It is a new way of looking at your people, because instead of forcing development, they're becoming self-developing. And that will change how you attract new people, how you mobilize your people, how you develop, promote, engage, pay, and reward your people. So let's break it down. Let's break it down. We're talking individuals, leaders, and organizations. Let's have a look at an individual. For an individual, you really need 4 things. You need to know the individual, you need to entice the individual, you need to improve the individual, you need to reward the individual. Let's talk about them. So if we're doing talent expansion, all right, we don't like to call it talent management. We want our people to expand. We want them to be self-developing. So first of all, treat people as individuals. They have personalized experience. And they expect the technology they use to know their preferences, know their capabilities, learn from the past, and provide meaningful and relevant recommendations. I go to Amazon, I go to eBay, I go to any of those online sites that we all use. They know who I am, they know what I've bought, they know what I like, and they recommend things that are relevant to me. Great for their bottom line because they sell more. Why aren't we doing that in the enterprise? I know my employees, I know what they can do. Why can't the system give them the stuff that they need? That's knowing them. And then that leads to enticing them. Because here you're going to not only give them the things that are most relevant to them, but you're going to do it in a way that's beautiful. Right? It is irresistible in the user experience, and you're going to see it. It is a lot more engaging of the experience. And I get connected to other people with similar roles and interests. This is all about enticing me just as an individual, but as part of a team. Improving me is not only making sure I get learning to expand my capabilities, but to develop in my career. The critical way of retaining talent is to provide employees with real-time performance and development opportunities. Right? Let them identify roles they're interested in. Let them see how close they are to being ready for that role. And then finally, rewarding. Rewarding is a lot more than just money. Right? People don't leave mostly for money. They leave because of lack of recognition and lack of management appreciation. This is where people can see how well they've done, they can see what their career mobility is like, and they feel rewarded and recognized for their contributions. And that could be contributions to their own career, but to other people's career too, in things like mentoring. Recognition and rewarding is what you need to empower individuals. So that's how an individual, that's how we can allow an individual to be part of a self-developing organization. Let's talk about what the manager, what our leaders need. And of course, leaders and managers don't always have to be the same, but we want to be able to encourage leaders everywhere. So we want our leaders, our managers, we want our managers to be world-class leaders. And to do that, they need the tools to understand their team's skills, their goals, their performance. And the SumTotal solutions will give our leaders a comprehensive view of their existing and their potential talent. Right? This is where we can know the team. And then you can start to engage your talent by doing things like setting clear expectations, encouraging continuous and real-time performance. So, there's this old story where we talk about developing our people. And, I've got a 6-year-old son. He's adorable. But if I treated his performance reviews like we do in most management, I gave him reviews once a year, once every 6 months, he wouldn't develop anywhere near as quickly as if I gave him continuous performance reviews. So the ability to get reviews at the end of a project or end of a month or a quarter, or get feedback from my peers or my suppliers or my clients, this is all part of ongoing and continuous development. So we've also then got the ability to recognize our best performers through traditional programs, but also through incentives like social, peer-based recognition, and some of the new technologies that are coming through under the label of gamification. Awards, incentives, badges, points. And then, last but not least, we've got to make sure that our talent management processes retain our best people and can allow them to develop. Right? So this is where, again, career mobility is going to be important for leaders. And let's finally talk about the organization. What does the organization need? It needs insight into talent. Right? It needs to be able to understand and predict things within your organization. Who are the best hires? Who are my best talent? Who should be considered for succession? We need to be able to deliver on our productivity our productivity goals. We need to be able to grow our team and increase capacity, and we have to be able to do more with less. We need to adapt. We need to make sure that if the industries we are in are changing, and they are, our business and our talent, our team, is ready. Have they got the right skills they need? Have they got the right compliance they need? And that's the alignment. Do I have the right people at the right time, and are they ready to do the job? This will, and it goes to the heart of Skillsoft's mission. Our mission is to improve the performance of organizations by improving the performance of people. So you make the people perform better, your organizations perform better. And that's what the self-developing organization does. So let's summarize it, and then I'm going to show you how it works. So we have an individualized development capability that allows you to engage your people and expand their knowledge. We've got continuous learning, which allows us to close our skill gaps, which gives us double the employee engagement. We've got career mobility, which increases retention and also makes sure that our talent is aligned with our corporate strategic objectives. We accelerate the acquisition of knowledge, which improves your team productivity and also their capabilities. And we give meaningful insights. And this is where we can do things like predicting risks and opportunities and delivering contextual, personalized recommendations. And as you saw, and we actually mentioned it right at the very beginning, the idea is companies who are achieving these results are seeing a 59% growth in revenue per employee, and that came from a Gallup poll in April of 2015. Not sure if you can see it at the bottom of the screen. So don't take my word for it. So employees that engage and develop their workforce realize a 59% growth in revenue per employee, and they end up with significant improvement with double the effectiveness of their employee engagement. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. We engage our employees better, we get better growth. So now I'd just like to spend a few minutes talking about how the SumTotal platform is designed to actually achieve these outcomes. To start with, we have a base platform, which they've called Elixir. It's a platform that allows you to connect other systems, could be your ERP, it could be data coming from other places, so that you can look at the talent you have in your organization holistically. You might be bringing in sales performance data for your sales team. Elixir also gives you the reporting and analytics capability, your insight and recommendations, and Skillsoft has partnered with IBM's Watson Research Center to start using that artificial intelligence and machine learning capability to give recommendations, like Amazon. We've got our organizational chart and our profile. That's the core of Elixir. Built around it are the three main pillars. learning, talent, and workforce. Learning will allow you to engage your people with learning activities, and also not just inside the organization, but outside as well. If you need to provide learning to your channel partners, to your actual customers. We have people like TD Ameritrade who are actually giving training to Ameritrade customers through the platform. The talent is all about making sure you know and grow your people. You can recruit, you can do 360 feedback, you can do performance appraisals, you can do succession planning, and even compensation reviews, bonuses, and so on. And then we have a comprehensive workforce management, which allows you to do things like payroll, benefit, expense, and so on. And then over the top, we have the curated content coming from Skillsoft, and that content is pre-mapped to competencies. So if your team have certain competencies, the system can automatically recommend the right content. We have mobile capabilities. The whole platform is touch optimized, and we have really sort of capable social collaboration tools that allow you to form communities of interest around any learning activity or any other topic you want. So that's the suite. I thought what I might do now, with the time we have left, is give you a sneak peek into Winter 2016, or into the 2016 release. So this is winter, obviously in the northern hemisphere. I'm actually talking to you from Sydney, Australia. It's not winter here. It's getting warm. Not quite as warm as some of the places in India, but it's getting warm. But winter is coming out in January or February, depending on where you are. And what you're going to see here is an indicative set of screens. Now, these are designs that show one possible implementation for a company. Our system is very configurable and very extendable, which is why we have so many enterprise and Fortune 500 companies who use us. And that does mean that it could look and function very differently for another company. It also shows some things that may not come through until the mid-year release, so it is still evolving and is still subject to change. But what you're seeing here is fundamentally what's coming through, and it's actually very similar to what we have in the current platform, but there's some nice new capabilities. So on that note, I'm going to jump across to the new designs, and hopefully you can see my screen. You'll see, first of all, that this is actually all within an iPad or a tablet. So it's all touch optimized, and it really is designed to be used anywhere. And the user experience is that engaging, enticing experience. So it's clean, it's consumer-like. It can look like a lot of the other systems that we use. I'll show a few things. If we have a look at the top with Aaron Parks, his photos there, but he's got that sort of wheel showing around him. This progress circle is giving him an indication of his mastery of his current job role. How close is he meeting his current competencies? And in fact, I can see it further down where I look at his role as a tax consultant manager. I've got 10 gaps. I can see I'm pretty good with my competencies. I'm a little bit behind on my learning, and my skills are probably the bit that's most lacking. But I can look at how close I am a fit to my senior manager role or even a director role. And that's that transparent visualization of my progression, my career progression. In addition, I can start to see other things. I've got a timeline down the side, and that's a sort of visual representation of what have I got to do now, what have I done in past, what's coming up. I've also got here in the top corner, top right-hand corner, some interesting things. How close am I to completing my learning plan? How am I achieving my goals? How close am I to my capabilities? My recommended learnings, which we talked about before, using some of the big data technologies. How long it will take, how many points will I get, and how much will it improve my capabilities? Points are things that relate to gamification. I have a current points balance, which I can then possibly redeem. So the gamification components are, at this point, indicative, but let's sort of go to our next stage. So I might choose to start my actual training, and it slides in from the right in one of my panes. And this is embedded Skillsoft content, again, recommended for me. And I can watch it. I might go full screen because I want to see how this looks. Once I'm happy, I'll exit the full screen. And I'm going to rate it. So that kind of feedback and social feedback on learning is it's often, one of the things that we overlook. But as a learner, I want to see what other people have rated highly. I could even be with one of my KPIs that I have reviewed, undertaken the training, but also commented and given feedback, because that's then useful for my peers. Let's go next. This particular plan is asking me to look at my competencies, and I can see the biggest gaps happen to be in things like planning and organizational skills. So this is where I've got gaps I need to address. By simply clicking on it, it slides out, and I can see more information about what learning would help address that gap. So again, we're talking about the ways for people to become self-developing. This is it. Okay. I'll accept all the recommendations, and in fact, it decreased the number of days until I'm productive, which is great. So I can simply go next, and that will add to my learning plan. Now, it's also suggested that I have a goal of tax certification. That's one of my annual goals that I'm trying to achieve this year. Well, actually, I'm trying to achieve it by, well, in this case, the 1st of the 1st of December 2014. That's the US date format. Of course, you can configure that to show in whichever date format you want. But here, I'm just going to accept 2 of these recommendations, and it will decrease the number of days until I'm productive as well. So that will add to my learning tasks. Now, this particular screen shows kind of almost what the current look and feel looks like. You know, it's very similar, but it just gives you that feel that you don't have to do it in any one way. It is highly configurable. I might want this as my welcome screen. Here, it happens to show things like community updates from our community modules, or even some social content that's come through. And I think what I'll do, though, is I'll jump back, you know, just to give an example. I could look at my learning plan, which slides out, or I could look at something like my goals, which when I click on them will slide out. And I can see I'm 35% complete my current goals, 7 in total. It's going to take me about 65 days to complete my goals, or to complete my first goal, but roughly a little under a year to complete all my goals. And I can again see recommended learning that will help me. But my goal might be to actually complete my tax certification. Let's hide that. I'm going to go back now to the new look and feel of, you know, what this particular goal and suggested learning might look like. Let's just go next. Step 4 of this particular flow is now suggesting social content from other people within my organization. So in fact, it suggested that I follow a thread on tax auditing. Oh, that's a great idea. And in fact, in that tax auditing, there is content which I could start. And this is coming from Shelley. So I can start that and I can review it. And this is content submitted by my team or my broader organizational team. I can review it, I can complete it, I can confirm that I've read it, and if need be, we could have a digital signature. So this is where you can not only enforce compliance, but this is social content. And Shelley can get recognition for actually delivering this content. Let's sign it and let's rate Shelley's content, which was, you know, let's face it, fantastic. I'll hit next. This is my learning plan. It's pulled together all the things that I need to see, but what happens if I want to get productive more quickly? Well, I can actually modify my own learning plan. And one of the problems you face if you have a large organization is you cannot physically create a customized learning plan for everyone. To generate a personalized learning plan for every single person take a long time. We allow people to do part of it themselves. So I can say, look, I actually want to decrease the time in classroom training and the amount of self-paced training. Let's see if I can make it more optimized. If I can squeeze it into a tighter time period and optimize my plan, I can get things done more quickly. And let's finish. So that's brought me back to my homepage. Let's do the last thing. Let's actually go ahead. I've achieved 11,000 points. That could be done by, you know, sort of doing learning. It could have been done by mentoring. It could have been done by putting up collaborative learning for other people, or anything you choose to you know, sort of drive points. Let's redeem some. So here are my rewards that are coming through. Catered lunch for a week, iPad Air tablet, 2 days vacation. Oh, yes, please sign me up for that one. 2 days vacation in Florida or Las Vegas. I think I'll go to Florida. Las Vegas is not my style. Do I need to approve it from my manager? Yes, please. Am I willing to mentor others attempting to achieve this? Absolutely. I will request my reward. Now, this, of course, is indicative. It may not suit your company, and it's just an idea of how you can use the platform to deliver a self-developing organization. But I hope this has given you an idea for the flexibility, for the engagement that you can get through a talent expansion system. It's not just learning, it's learning embedded in the way you develop your people and the way they develop themselves. You do that by becoming a self-developing organization. So at that point, I'm going to pause. I think we've still got a fair bit of time for some questions. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that, and I would ask if there's any questions at the moment.
Thank you so much, Tim, for such an insightful session. And yes, we do have a few questions from the attendees, which I would request you and Faraz to answer. So can I start with first question?
Absolutely.
Great. So, Tim, the first question is with reference to your slide number 7 in the presentation. This question is from Anurag, and he wants you to expand more on the word entice, which is there on slide 7 in your presentation.
Are we talking about the individuals or for the leaders? I'm guessing for the leaders, where we're talking about talent insight.
Right. On slide 7 of your presentation, you have mentioned entice. So the gentleman wants to give you a more clear, wants you to give a more clear understanding on the same.
Absolutely, and I might say something, and then I'll ask Faraz to add to it if he wants to. Really, there's a number of things we talk about with insights. It could be as simple as understanding who within my team have completed their appropriate training. Where are they at with compliance? Where are our exceptions? That's easiest. But then it goes further. What about seeing which of my team are retention risks, which are flight risks? Right? That's an insight into my talent. What about people who are behind on achieving their goals versus ahead of achieving their goals? What about people who are, who are coming up to a compensation review cycle? And I'm looking at who my best performers are. I can see their performance assessment rating. I might be able to see where they are in a 9 box if I'm doing things like succession planning. And I might even want to get, and we have this already in the platform, a recommendation. So we have a recommendation that will look at the factors you put in, and you can configure this or customize this to say, all right, I want to look at the time they've been in the organization. I want to look at their pay packet or pay compared to a comp ratio that we've got from external sources. I want to look at their recent 360 feedbacks and their performance feedbacks. And I also want to look at how they're doing achieving their goals and completing their learning. And that will give me insight to whether I should give them a raise or not, or whether they're retention risk and what are the actions that I should take if I'm mentoring my team. So the system can actually give you proactive recommendations on things to do for various team members based on the knowledge that you have got about those team members. Faraz, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, Tim, I think I'm just checking the Q&A, and thank you. Anurag was also looking for individuals and how you entice them in the system. So I think I think the basic ground rule over here is, for example, why would you go to a show? I mean, how do you know that this theater is actually having a great show, and a show which should entice the audience into the theater? How do you do that? So it's all about tempting and luring and attracting them into the learning management system. The best ways, I would say, are to actually engage them by notifying them using push notifications and emails, telling them in terms of, different levels they are in using gamification, showing them different aspects of the LMS, like, people who are talking about them and people who are actually available and looking forward to questions that they have actually put in the discussion forum, or a response from the expert on something that they were looking forward to, or recommended learning about some of the learning they've actually been in progress or not completed or started. The system is actually not just a transactional machine. It's smart and actually is sending them nuggets out there when they are not in the system and luring them into it so that they can actually engage better. Look at recommended learning. Notice expert discussions. Be part of documents that have been shared, and even look at rewards that can be available based on their leaderboard due to the contributions or their engagement in the system. I hope I was able to answer a little bit on the individual side.
Yeah, thank you, Faraz.
Right, thank you. Please go ahead.
I think the point, thank you. I think Faraz's point is well made. engagement is not something that just starts at the induction day. Yes, it starts there, but it's something that's continuous. And you engage your employees in many ways. You will engage them with, recommended learning that will improve them. You'll engage them with career progression that will allow them to excel and grow and expand. You will engage them through, incentives and rewards. And you engage them through recognition. So it's funny that on that slide we have engage as a single sort of area, but in actual fact engagement is broader than that. It is the whole thing that you want to do is make your employees feel valued and grow by knowing them, enticing them to do, sort of the learning that you need them to do, encouraging them as they do that and rewarding and recognizing them as you improve them. And really, you empower those individuals, they become engaged, your business becomes more productive. That, I think, is the essence and the summary of this webinar. So,
right.
I do see another question there as well. It's related to linking financial achievements and numerical targets with performance. So it's an interesting one here where, we have a customer who was seeing a situation where people's performance appraisals were all really high, but they were missing their numbers. It was as simple as that. And just tying the actual sales target outcomes and making that information visible during performance appraisals, visible on the employee dashboards, could bring that insight that leaders need. So, it will always depend on each organisation what weightings you give to things, and obviously in terms of who they are in the organisation. It could be sales numbers, it could be customer satisfaction scores, it could have been, resolution scores if you're talking about a service centre. But the data that you have about your employees is most often for a lot of our customers siloed, and by using Elixir and the talent profile, you can bring that information in and then have that visible as insights that you can then use when doing things like performance appraisals or setting up learning plans for your people. And I think that's a great story about how you connect financial or other metrics with the human resource and talent process.
Thank you, Tim, and for answering that question for us. The next question is from Vishal. He wants to know what can be the best process for employee engagement, and should it not be linked the first day of employee, that is the induction day?
I saw the question as well, and we sort of maybe covered that a little bit. And yes, induction day is a start point, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And in fact, too often what happens in a lot of our businesses is we give employees this great feeling on their induction day, and then, we don't do anything else after that. And I can't say what's the best process for employee engagement. It will depend on every business. But there are some common themes. Some of the common themes is treat your people as individuals and have a system that can do that. Make sure you recognize their capabilities and their gaps. Make sure that you entice them with something that is a lovely experience, and it's contextual. It might come through email, it might appear in Salesforce, it might appear on your intranet, it might appear on your help desk screens, so that the learning that they need is there, and it allows them to see how they're progressing, both in their current role and in future career progressions, because that's what people do stay for. If you want to engage your people, you let them see where they can go in the organization, you give them new skills, you recognize them and get them to help each other. These are all the things we've been talking about. It starts in the induction day, but it can't end there. It has to be continuous. And you are giving continuous feedback, continuous appraisals, continuous learning, continuous recognition. And you need a system that supports that. So I think that's the best process. It is different for every business, but it needs to keep going. I think that's a really key thing. You've got to know your people, you've got to entice them, you've got to improve them, you've got to reward them. You give people that, you engage them, and then you are more successful. And you do all of this by creating an organization, a culture that is self-developing. And that actually has to be a culture that values learning, values people, contributing, values transparency and career progression. These are some of the things that are needed to make your organization self-developing. If you do that, you're going to start seeing those benefits we saw before.
Thank you, Tim, for answering that. So another question is a continuation of the same. Rahul wants to know, would like to note, understand the same engagement for a school with regards to education industry.
I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. Faraz, did you get what was being asked there?
Yeah, I think let me rephrase it. And I think the idea is the same engagement that we are actually talking about in terms of the corporates or organizations. How can we actually do the same engagement and enticement for academics? And I believe the rule of thumb or the carrot and the stick rule in terms of how we could actually bring about a change is similar but not the same, because the audience here is a little different, the content is different, the reward is different. But I would say the whole ground rule will apply the same, because the idea here is that even in academics, we should actually try and create more spaced learning, or I would say shorter lessons, and break it up so that students are more engaged rather than they actually see a big documentation and then they are like totally disengaged. So I think spaced learning is one way, by micro lessons and smaller lessons, because corporates are anyways getting micro lessons and they don't have that issue. But in academics, micro lessons are not there, and if you actually break your subjects into smaller lessons and then deliver them or notify them out to students, there will be lots more engagement in the way they are actually going through lessons step by step. And also in terms of maybe a gamification incentive can be applied in real life rewards, or maybe some kind of leaderboard or some credits can be given even in the academics level, to actually let the students know where they are and how engaged they are in the system. Because even if you are not actually giving some kind of a real life reward, you can at least give them a leaderboard. And of course, I think majority, I would say, I think the latest Gallup report says 24% says the discussion boards would be the social module that would most engage them. So I think when they are actually talking to their peers and engaging with them and sharing their knowledge or uploading a document or giving a video link, they are more engaged and they are actually learning informally, even though the formal learning is happening. So if you do a blend of formal and informal learning in your system and provide real-life rewards or maybe at least some leaderboard, and then make those lessons shorter, like spaced learning, I think you have some hangway into getting into engagement levels in academics as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Faraz. I might just add to it as well, and I'll sort of just be also transparent here. I mean, generally the Skillsoft and SumTotal platform is designed for corporate environments, but it can obviously be used in an academic world, to deliver content. And I think Faraz's point about things like micro-learning is really important. And if you think about a career progression that we saw before in the click-through, that makes sense when translated to your academic progression. How am I proceeding to graduation? How am I proceeding over time? I'd like to also point out, and one of the things I've always thought was really particularly odd about any academic business, and they are, let's face it, businesses, is they actually fire their employees, or their customers, sorry. Most academic businesses fire their customers every 3 or 4 years. You finish your degree, thanks very much, see you later. That doesn't make sense in the world we live in. In an uncertain and changing world, people need to keep their skills up, and that's that agility. So for an academic institution, the other thing you can start to do is think about the long-term plan. So if you have the content and you're continuously adding to it, you can deliver it through this platform to your former students. They might be on a subscription, they might pay per course, but then they can over time progress and gain new skills. And the skills and progression that they have can then show up in their resume, and they can increase their career over time. So this same approach for developing your career in a company makes sense when developing your career through academic learning over time.
Right. Thank you, Tim and Faraz, for answering that for us. So we have another question from Kalpesh. He wants to know, in VUCA world, how do you plan a career progression roadmap for individuals, and what could be the role of L&D to achieve the same?
Yeah, thanks for that. So, I mean, he's talking there about a volatile, uncertain, complex, and changing business environment. But this is what we've been talking about, right? We started with those challenges. This is the challenges we're facing. Everyone's world is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So in that world, how do you plan a career progression roadmap? Well, you don't have to have maybe I'll rephrase it this way. Maybe it's not a roadmap. Maybe it's a set of options. It's not a single path that any of us follow. It's different things that we might want to do. So it's not necessary to have a single next role. It can be a range of roles. Maybe you're moving to different areas of the business. Maybe you're moving to a sister company. And one of the great things about the platform is you can actually have almost independent learning management platforms but still have a single central talent profile. So if you're a large organization with multiple divisions, you can actually get a single view of all of your talent and allow people to move between departments, between business units, between regions. Maybe the career progression is not changing roles, maybe it's changing places. And we have companies, one of the world's biggest hotel chains, or one of the most prestigious hotel chains, used us to be able to identify talent as they were expanding into different regions. That was a reward for people who were skilled appropriately, had the right competencies, and they could then be invited to be part of the opening of a new region. So career progression isn't necessarily a single direction. It can be aspirations to a different number of places and different number of roles. And the great thing about the way the SumTotal platform works is you can have a number of roles identified as ones you're interested in and see how your competencies and your skills fit and identify where the gaps are so that you can add it to your learning plan. You can do it yourself. You can even have a wizard that steps you through it. And I'm happy to show you that just in a real live, current website that's working right now. But I think it's a really powerful way that I can say, I'm interested in moving to this role. What do I need to do? Or I'm interested in moving to this place. What do I need to do? Hopefully that answers the question. If you'd like me to, I can show you an example of it. But otherwise, we can move to the next question.
So, Tim, I think we should move over to the next question because we have a lot pouring in. So, the next is from Shalini. She says that employee engagement should also not go overboard. Where do you think the company needs to draw the line?
I don't know. That will often be culturally dependent. So I might actually ask for his opinion on that one.
Well, I think, thanks, Tim. There's a thin line between, managing and not moderating. So control, I would say, how do you control it and what is the best way to control it? So I think what I would suggest is having a good moderation on what forums that you are actually, or what topics you are allowing learners to. It's like handing over the mic and letting them have a great day. So it's like you could actually have topics that you create to administration and then allow users to comment only on those specific topics, not give them the leverage to create their own topics. The other ways are not allow them to share anything on social media and then disengage them from actually doing anything beyond the platform or beyond your learning platform. One more important aspect is that profanity checks in discussion forums are very, very important. So you need to have moderation, administration, and all those controls because things go, because it's, corporate culture is not more or less something which is wrong, which is being said. It's mostly confidential information shared immediately on the go, and then it's not supposed to. So I think those kind of moderation and checks and filters are very critical. Anything beyond in terms of the line, I think that should be more or less the same. But I think just ensure that you have control on everything.
Yeah, and I'd sort of agree to that to a degree. I mean, let's not forget we are all adults. We're all in a work environment, and these communities are internal. So you're no more likely to do something inappropriate there than you would in the office. But of course, moderation, and we have even built-in legal and spelling checks when you're doing things like a performance appraisal. So for new managers who are not necessarily skilled in writing a performance appraisal, first of all, they can get training on how to write a performance appraisal, but there are legal checks. So that's a way of exerting control. But, if you need to disengage your employees, that's a nice problem to have. Most people have the opposite problem. we need to engage our employees more. And the best corporate cultures around the world are the ones that have highly engaged employees, people who love what they do, they love the company. I think, yes, you've got to have some controls in place, and we have a very fine-grained security model and a very fine-grained audience model that allows you to surface appropriate learning to the appropriate people. But if you have a situation where your employees are really engaged and strong advocates for your brand, they're developing themselves, they're looking for career progressions, that is what you want. Don't try and disengage those. Find those people, reward those people, recognize those people, because they are your best employees. The ones who aren't engaged that are probably the ones you need to develop further. That's just my opinion, but the research does seem to bear that out.
Right. Thank you, Tim and Faraz, for answering Shalini's question. Now, the next question is actually a continuation of Rohit's previous question regarding engagement in educational setup. So he wants to know, apart from engaging teachers through academic engagement, what can be done to engage teachers in international schools?
It's a good question. I mean, teachers are in many ways employees, so the traditional things we've spoken about, career progression and learning for them is important. But also, there is a place there for potential incentive rewards or points. It could be as simple as feedback, feedback from their students, which is surfaced, and, the people who are getting the best feedback start getting rewarded appropriately for that. That's a simple one. And having been a teacher myself, generally the feedback you always get is negative, and that's disheartening. If you can find your best teachers and identify them, and they're the ones who get the reward points or the weekend in Florida. That's how you identify your best employees and you reward them. And internationally, that's one of the great things about the platform. It can be done in multiple languages, and of course, it can be done across the web so that everyone can be part of it. And of course, then you have your communities of practice. So teachers learn from each other. So having the communities where the teachers can share best practice, share training materials, upload it themselves, have it available to their people, that's part of what the platform is capable of doing. But I do sort of remind everyone that the SumTotal and Skillsoft platform is designed primarily as a corporate education and corporate talent tool. It isn't generally designed for sort of universities who are going to be training thousands of employees. It's not quite its function. It's for developing your employee. For organisations that are developing thousands of students, it's more for organisations who are developing thousands of internal employees. So that they have slightly different needs. Doesn't mean it can't be used, but generally that's its main purpose. Faraz, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think I'm in agreement, Tim. I think the corporate part does make a lot of sense in terms of the elements of it, but I think the whole interaction between a student and teacher is a little bit more different. And I think the kind of knowledge that has to be shared ongoingly is more formal plus informal. So in case, I think as part of a self-development, there is a lot more engagement happening because the teacher is almost there 24/7 trying to educate. I think giving them access to many such tools, not just the forums or social tools, but also giving them ability to have interactive boards or interactive engagement is what makes a difference, and that is a different ballgame, as I said.
Quite right. Oh, I was saying, I did notice another question there, which I thought was quite interesting, where it was Mitra. Was that the one you were going to read next?
Right. I was about to read the next question from Mitra. So he is asking, while engagement activities are rational and emotional in nature, how do we measure employee engagement?
And I think it's a great question to finish off on. Given we only have a couple of minutes, I'm going to say a couple of things and see if Faraz wants to say anything. But there are a number of ways to measure employee engagement. Let's start with the simplest, your performance appraisal. Right? Hopefully, every few months at the end of each project, employees that are engaged, managers know that, and managers are the ones who are reviewing their employees. So that's one easy way. You could look at their posts to the internal communities. You could look at their ratings and their comments they've made. You could look at the things they've offered right? You could look at the 360 feedbacks that they've got from their peers. You could look at their usage of the platform, just purely. And ultimately, you're going to be looking at their potential as their career progression, and that could be in a succession planning environment where we're identifying successes and putting them into a 9-box, comparing their outcomes, and even putting them into a talent pool that we want to further develop. So this is, the outcome of how engaged the people are. But all those different things we talked about are part of what you would look at when you are doing things like a talent assessment. How are they doing the learning? How are they doing with their competencies? What are their reviews like? What are their 360 feedback like? What's their submissions like? How much mentoring have they done for their people? These are all things that you would look at for measuring employee engagement. And the final one, probably the easiest, we've got a great survey capability to just start asking people what their engagement levels are like. You could very quickly use our survey builder, the same survey builder that's used for performance appraisals and 360 feedback, to just simply ask people what their engagement levels are like. Great way to set a baseline. Set it once, work on it, review it again a year later, and see how much more engaged your employees are. And also, ultimately, see how your business is improving.
Thank you, Tim and Faraz, for answering that question. Now we have some more questions to go, but due to paucity of time, I would request you both to answer those questions offline. And with this question and answer session, we are going to wrap up today's webinar. Once again, we thank today's webinar partner, Skillsoft. And finally, our special thanks to Tym Lawrence, the speaker for today's webinar, and Faraz for their invaluable information that they have shared with us today. And I would like to thank everyone and the webinar audience for participating in today's presentation. We will come back to you with many more. This concludes today's webcast. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thank you, Sweta. You have a great day too.
Thank you.